Welcome back to the channel. My name is Mark Ashby. I am the one and only Grillionaire, and we are in our final episode of Cookin the Books. For the final episode of this series, I waited to do one of the barbecue greats, the hardcore carnivore herself, Jess Pryles. And just like every other chef I've done a recipe for during this series, I slid into Jess Pryles' DMs and I said, hey Jess, you know we are best friends from way back in Australia. I need a recipe from your hardcore carnivore book. And she said, Mark, of course I remember you from Australia. And then I moved to Texas, you moved to South Carolina, but we're still best friends. And here, I'm gonna give you 5 different choices and I want you to pick. So for today's episode, I'm choosing the smoked sausage rolls. Let's get started. We're doing everything on my Grill Silverback, and I've got it running up to 375 degrees. And if you look down here, I've got our induction cooker going, and we're gonna saute some onions and garlic first. I went ahead and I diced 1 whole onion, and we're gonna throw that in the pan to start that sauteing process. So these are starting to slightly brown, so we wanna take 2 cloves of minced garlic and put it in there until it becomes fragrant and aromatic, and then we're going to pull this off and let them cool for a minute. These have browned and sauteed down just enough. I'm starting to smell the garlic that we put in there, so we're going to let this sit aside for about 5 minutes and cool down. Then we're going to throw all of our stuff into a bowl and get that sausage roll going. Our next step in this process is we have to get everything in a bowl and mix it around to get that sausage mixture going. Okay, this was around, I guess, fresh today, and we're using 2 pounds of it. And now we're gonna mix in all the spices and goodness to get that flavor going. First step, add those aromatic garlic and onion pieces that we sauteed earlier. Next step is a 1/3 cup of breadcrumbs, but we're using some pork panko instead, just to give it a little bit of a different flair. 1½ tablespoon of kosher salt. I'm doing 3 generous pinches. 1 tablespoon of smoked paprika. Or a little less. That's fine. Just adding the flavor. 1 teaspoon of ground cumin. 4 ounces of crumbled goat cheese. It's gonna give it a nice little tang sweetness taste. We need 6 ounces of fresh cheddar for this recipe, so we are taking Vermont sharp cheddar and we are going to finely grate it on the cheese grater and put all that in. Take your finely grated cheese and put that in. It is okay if you have a little bit of extra chunks in there. It's all going to melt down when we put this in the puff pastry. Last one, 4 diced jalapenos that have been roasted, fire roasted. I roasted them here on the Loco griddle. One of my favorite things to do in barbecue, wear gloves, because we're about to get messy. We are getting our hands really dirty, and I'm also afraid because of how much paprika I put in there, it might overpower this whole thing. We'll find out. And as you're working the meat, you want to make sure that you get everything incorporated, but do not overwork the meat. Or the mixture, I should say. Next step is we are going to take this puff pastry, load it up with the beef mixture. We're gonna make 2 logs out of this, and then we're gonna put it in this cast iron pan to let it smoke on that pellet smoker. Get your pastry rolled out, or struggle with it like I did, because this has probably been thawed too long. But you do have to make sure that it is thawed. So we're gonna get our puff pastry and kind of push it out a little bit, and we're gonna take half of our mixture here and start building a log. Nice and tasty. Take your roll and push it over, and we're going to take some of our egg wash and put it on the edges here. This is going to act like a glue that will hold this puff pastry together while it's baking. Kind of roll it like a burrito, just like that. This may not be the prettiest one, and you're gonna tuck it in, make sure that it's pressed down, and then you're just gonna take a knife, make a little slits in it right here. Give it some nice, pretty look. Right, follow me over here. We're gonna take this, and we are going to lay it directly on the pan here. We're gonna finish up the second one and throw it on the smoker for about 30 minutes. All right, so we have two different versions here, one circumcised, one uncircumcised, and we're gonna toss it in the smoker at 375 for about 30 minutes. It should be golden brown, and the meat should be about 165 internal to make sure that it's fully cooked. Been about 45 minutes. It went a little over 30. We were just trying to get the meat fully cooked. Now, I do want to preface that I missed a step in this recipe where we were supposed to bake it in slices. Instead, I baked it in the whole loaf. So when you see this, just keep that in mind. But come on, follow me. I'm not ashamed of any failures I have. And there we go. We definitely got a sausage roll of sorts. We got lots of grease from the 2 pounds of beef in there. So we're gonna let this rest for just a minute, and then we'll slice into it. I may not have cooked it exactly right. I skipped the one step of slicing it in, where the puff pastry probably would have puffed up a little bit more. I also had the puff pastry a little bit more thawed than it should have been. But you can see here, we have got perfectly cooked beef. The puff pastry, you can hear it, nice and flaky. And the flavor is definitely gonna be there. So let's try a bite. Cheers. It's good. Ooh. Okay, this is a play on an Australian appetizer, and Jess brought it to Texas. We're bringing it with beef, and I brought it to South Carolina, adding a few more spices and everything else. This is very good. Essentially, it looks like I made a meatloaf inside of a puff pastry. So maybe a meatloaf Wellington, I'm not sure, but it is excellent. And I bet if I had some like tomato sauce or something like that, this would be really good. I would probably rate my recipe maybe a 9 out of 10, something like that. If you follow the steps like I should have, and I forgot one, it probably would be a 10 out of 10. The presentation would probably be a lot better too. But overall, I am super happy with this. I'm going to be sharing it with my neighbors and my coworkers. This is a must try. This recipe, along with Jess's recipe, will be on my website, grillmartco.com. And you can go there, you can buy merch, you can buy grilling accessories. And there is a new thing that is coming to the Grill Mart Co website. The reason I did this entire series, taking cookbooks, taking recipes from celebrity chefs and barbecue pitmasters, and bringing my own spin on this, is because I have written my second cookbook. My first book that I wrote was only an ebook, and it's called The Grillionaire's Guide to Gourmet Grilling. You can find it on Kindle and Amazon e-reader. The second book I wrote, which is just out now, it is also available in print, which is super exciting. It's called The Grillionaire's Guide to Blazing Bites. I love handing out recipes, and what's cool about this book too is it has QR codes that leads to the recipes that I've made, the videos for it, and I'm really excited about the release of this book. The e-reader version is $3.99. The printed version is $12.99. It has 11 recipes that will make your next barbecue be amazing. So until next time, keep those grills fired up so the flavor doesn't go down. Order my book from Amazon.com, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.